Join me as I create unique holiday crafts that will help boost my small business sales this upcoming holiday season and stand out next to my competitors. If you're a small business owner and creative, you know how important the holiday season is for boosting sales and revenue. And one way to get a slice of this pie is by selling and creating unique holiday crafts. Hi, I'm Sylvia from Backyard Brushes in Fountain City, Wisconsin. And these crafts are not only fun to make, but they're super appealing to customers looking for affordable and unique gifts or decor. So let's roll up our sleeves and let's get creating. For project 1, I'm using some bottles from the cold coffee by Starbucks. I am not a coffee drinker, but I am drinking these just because I love these bottles. I sprayed all the bottles with Rust-Oleum clear coat so the paint would have something to adhere to, and gave each bottle 2 coats of paint. The first bottle I used Fusion by Alchemy, and this second bottle I am using Beadboard by DIY. The third bottle I am mixing crinoline with burlap or faded burlap by DIY to get kind of a lighter crock looking color, and I actually really did like the mixture of these two together. So I just mixed some paint together and gave the bottle 2 coats of paint. And it when it dries, it's a lot lighter than when it's wet, and it really does mimic the color of Crocs. And a little tip here, when I went back to do the bottom of my bottles, I was able to just spray that dry paint with some water and use the leftovers for the bottom of my bottle. And that's what's really nice about the DIY paints, is how you can react them with water. Using Weathered Wood by DIY, I just took my brush and I dabbed along the top and the bottoms of each bottles. And I actually learned this technique from Connie at the Paint and Photographer. While the paint was still wet, I used a water misting bottle and I just sprayed those bottles and I let that paint drip down. And I just sprayed as I felt I needed to, no rhyme or reason, pretty random. And I just let that wet paint reactivate with the dry paint. And it gave me that really vintage vibe, like the bottles are a lot older than they really are. And I just followed the same processes for all 3 bottles. I would dab and spray, let it drip. It did get really messy, but I don't care. At the end, it was so worth it with that nice old looking effect that this technique gave. So thank you, Connie, from the Painted Photographer, because I do have one of my new favorite techniques. And I would also flip the bottle upside down so that I can also spray the bottle and get the same similar effects. And it was interesting, if you can see the bottle on the left was the Fusion mineral paint. The paint didn't absorb the water as well as the DIY paint did. So it was a little bit more, I don't know, crusty and peeling, plasticky peeling like versus the DIY paint. But I still liked that effect I got. Once I was done and the bottles had all dried, I used Big Top by DIY to seal the bottles. I placed towels on the side of the bottle. I grabbed my new IODs. I don't even know the name of the stamps. I call them my Santa stamps. And I used a red ink that is archival. And I forgot my thin mount. So I'm just going to freestyle it with my hands. And I juiced up the candy cane with the red ink. And using my hands to hold the stamp, I just pressed it firmly on the bottle. It is a lot easier using a thin mount. So lesson learned with this stamp. So I just slanted the stamp and pressed it firmly onto the bottle, pressing into the candy cane. And then I just lifted the stamp off, used baby wipes to clean my stamp. I did feel that it looked a little bright, and I'm going to show you what I did to solve that. But for the bottle that's painted with the Fusion Alchemy, I used a black archival ink, and I stamped up a snowman. And following the same process, I found my thin mount, attached the stamp, juiced up the stamp, pressed it down firmly onto the bottle. And once I felt that I had it all pressed in, I just gently lifted up and I had my snowman. I felt like a piece of my snowman was missing. So I did ink up that section of the stamp and I added a little more. For my bottle that is made out of with the burlap and the crinoline, I thought this little girl was so cute, and holding the nutcracker, I used the blue china by IOD, and following the same process, I just stamped the little girl right onto the bottle. For all 3 bottles, I did use my heat gun to set the stamp. I then went back and put some black on the candy cane stamp. And now you get to see all my gray hair as I'm looking over the stamp, making sure that I align it. And I just pressed gently some black ink on top of the red, just to give it more of that aged effect and tone down the red. Using DIY by Big Top, I sealed my stamps. And I did do this for all 3 bottles. And I really do love the blue china ink on that light croc looking color made by the crinoline and faded burlap. I then decided it needed a little bit more touching up with distressing it, aging it a little bit. So using the clear wax, I covered the bottle. I then went over with DIY dark wax, just a little bit. I didn't want to overwhelm it. And I tinged up my bottle. I just randomly pressed some of that darker ink into the bottle to give it more of that aged effect. And I did like that look. I also knew that if I put too much wax on, I could use the clear wax as an eraser and take it off. So I just gently toned down the wax, and I followed the same process on the other 2 bottles. Clear wax, and by the last one with the candy cane, I just kind of went in and cleaned off my wax brush on the bottle. I added some crushed ribbon and florals, and I think it's a perfect holiday decor. For project 2, I used the amazing quick setting resin, and I poured some of the hearts in the IOD Bibliette molds. And for all these IOD products, I can leave links in my description for Sonnet's Garden Blooms and for Julie's Signs and Designs. So if you haven't gotten a hold of any of their IOD holiday release, you might want to go ahead and order some before they're gone. And I like the way these Bibliette molds have the little loop so that you can just insert your ribbon or thread, whatever you're using, for your ornaments. It just makes it a lot easier. And then I always keep the snowflake molds next to me. So once I'm done pouring what I need for my resin project, I can just pour some snowflakes, and I just keep kind of like a bucket. Well, it's not really a bucket, but a canister full of snowflakes. Since the snowflakes, I use them a lot during the holiday season, and I don't really want to waste my resin. And it does dry super quickly. You can see how, and this is of course speeded up, but you can just see how it turns so nice and white, and it's so much easier to see when it's done. You can tell by the heat and by the color. Once they're dried, I can just pop those right out of the mold. And I do use alcohol to clean my molds and wipe down my containers that I use. I'm using Apothecary by DIY. I also did not show, I did paint the base part with the Fusion Birch paint. And I just painted the edge with the Apothecary. And I always do remember to go in and do the back of my ornaments, or well, all my projects. And for the other heart, I used Golden Ticket by DIY, and I painted the center. I didn't feel comfortable using a bright red or pink paint because I felt like they'd look more like Valentine's, which is why I was going with the Apothecary and using the Golden Ticket. And I also did use Dixie Belle's Golden Gilding Wax to tap out some of the details on the hearts and the edges and the dots. And I can also link the Dixie Belle products in my description also. DIY Big Top to seal my Bibliette hearts. My goal for these hearts were actually not ornaments. However, but for decor, I purchased these fake mistletoe greenery from Amazon, and I can also link those in the description. They have some twine already attached, and they have a nice loop for hanging the mistletoe. So I just used the twine to attach the hearts. Got a little out of my way as it started to untwine, but those holes are really nice for twine, ribbon, whatever you're using. Yep, this one definitely got away from me, so I just twisted it, popped it through that hole, tied a knot, and I tied the heart right onto the mistletoe greenery bunch, and you can see that nice little loop it has on it. I tied it down, and then I chose gold crushed velvet, and I can also link my crushed velvet links in the description below too. And it could be used as an ornament, It does have, the loops to hang it. But I was thinking of it more as a decor piece with the mistletoe to bring back that old-fashioned tradition. So once I got it attached, I'm sorry, I am not the most, I don't even know the words. I'm not the best at doing these small details with my hands. And I just tried to keep it tight on there so it wasn't going to come off. Not sure what problem I was having. Clipped the edges with the scissors. Grabbed some crushed velvet in the gold. And there's one of these I used a crushed velvet in like a sage green color that was similar, reminds me of Apothecary, and it is so pretty. It might be one of my new favorites, but that green was too dark, so I chose the gold, and I just tied on the ribbon to the loop of the decor piece. I'm not the best at making bows, so I like the simplicity of just tying that knot and letting the ribbon hang down, which, as you can tell, is enough of a challenge for me sometimes. And I did place the heart into the greenery, so it just wasn't laying right on top. And I just tied a knot with the ribbon, and I thought it made a really good accent piece too. And I really did think these were fun to make and a little bit something different. Not everyone has mistletoe decor for sale in their vendor booths. I sell a lot of ornaments in the holiday seasons, so I'm always prepping different ornaments. I had casted a bunch of snowflakes using the Prima holiday mold, and the reason I used the Prima is because they also had that loop for the resin, so you didn't have to attach a way to affix your hanging product. I started out by painting all of my snowflakes orange, since I would be using a metal type of paint. I'm just told to paint them orange before you paint them with metallics. So I painted all the ornaments orange. Then I used Dixie Belle copper patina paint, and I always start with the backs, and I painted all of the ornaments with the copper paint, and I let them dry. I also painted a set of snowflakes in the Dixie Belle bronze patina paint. I love Dixie Belle's metallic patina paints, and I love they have the sprays that you can oxidize them. So I gave each of the ornaments a second coat of paint, and I sprayed one set of the copper with the blue spray. I also sprayed the bronze, the set of ornaments that were painted in bronze with the blue spray. And for the third set of ornaments, I used the copper with the green spray. Once they'd all dried, I used DIY Big Top, and I sealed all of the snowflakes. I still had more snowflakes, so I used a metallic blue paint and gave them each 2 coats. Using Mod Podge with the glitter, I sealed the snowflakes. I had more snowflakes, so I painted those with beadboard by DIY. And I sealed those actually with the Pint Art glitter. I wanted to see if there was a difference between the Pint Art and the Mod Podge, and there was no difference. I could not tell the ornaments apart, except for the color I had painted, the base color. I then used DIY white wax, and I covered all of the blue ornaments with the DIY wax. And I just pressed in really good because I wanted to make sure I got into all that fine detail. I used a paper towel and I gently removed the top portion of the wax. And I loved how that white wax settled into the details of the mold, and it really helped those ornaments pop out. And you could see the glitter also from the Mod Podge. So for the last set of ornaments, the snowflakes, with the beadboard, I had sealed those with the Pint Art glitter, and now I'm using DIY's Shipwreck wax, and I'm just pouncing all over those ornaments, making sure to press that wax into all the details, and there's so many fine details. I used a paper towel to gently take off the top coating of wax on the top part of the ornaments. And I had a beautiful effect, and I could also see the glitter from the Pint Art. I chose some small crushed velvet, some embroidery thread, some gold ribbon, and I just went through and I threaded and tied together the hangers to all the ornaments. And for some of the ornaments, some wax had gotten stuck into the little loopy where you put the thread, and I just used a wooden skewer, pushed out that wax, and was able to then pull through the material I was using to hang the ornaments. I would love to know if you prefer the metallic aged snowflakes, or if you prefer the more traditional white glitter with the blue, or the blue with the glitter and the white detail. I'm kind of partial to the metal, but I have a feeling I'm in the minority for those. Let me know in the comments below if you're starting to prep for the holiday season, and I'd also love to know which one of these was your favorite, and if there are any of these projects you're willing to try this holiday season. If you found this video inspirational, please hit subscribe below and follow me along on my creative journey. Thank you.